Are the Giants going to live to regret the trade that they made to acquire Kris Bryant? It was just a couple of months of Bryant. The Giants didn't win the World Series, although they did win the NL West, and they gave up a couple of intriguing prospects. So we're going to talk about who those prospects were, what exactly they gave up, and we're also going to answer a bunch of other questions. That's just one of numerous questions we're going to get to on today's mailbag edition of Locked on Giants. All of that coming up next.
You are Locked on Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide episodes actually 3 days a week for now, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. And coming up on today's show, we're just going to keep getting to these mailbag questions. Yesterday, we got to a few, maybe more than a few, and I received about 40 questions. So thank you so much to everyone who submitted one on Twitter. We're just going to continue to run through them. Most of them are great questions, so I just can't wait to continue to answer them. So the first question comes from Pasquale. Let me know if I'm not pronouncing that right. Who asks, will the Giants regret about Canario and other prospects gone in the Bryant trade? So the prospects the Giants gave up were Kilian, a right-handed pitcher, and Alexander Canario, a right-handed outfielder. And there's always the possibility that you're going to live to regret when you make these types of moves, especially given what type of move it was. It was a rental trade. It was basically the Cubs acquiring the chance that these players that they acquired become major league contributors for a long period of time for the Cubs. And in exchange, the Giants got 2 months of Kris Bryant. That's the deal. That is what these rental trades are about. And ideally, you get something very valuable out of the rental. And I would say that even though the Giants got eliminated in the division series in 5 games to the Dodgers, I would still say that the Bryant trade was worthwhile in that they won the National League West. I don't think they win the National League West without acquiring Kris Bryant. As much as he was not great with the Giants, he was good but not great. He was replacing, in theory, the worst player on the roster, because whoever you acquire Bryant and you knock somebody off the roster, in theory, it's the worst player at the position that he plays. And so Bryant moved around. So that tells me, Dickerson was probably the biggest casualty of at-bats, without getting too much into exactly who Bryant took playing time away from. I would say it was probably Alex Dickerson. And so, yeah, if Dickerson is out there every day and not Bryant, do they win 107 games? Maybe it's 105 and they don't win the National League West. I can think specifically there was a game in Arizona where Bryant basically had the game-tying hit, the game-winning hit, and obviously he contributed more than in just that one game. So anyway, I think winning the division was worthwhile. Like the benefit of that was worth the chance that these 2 players you gave up might go on to have somewhat productive careers. I think that Kilian is actually probably a better prospect than Alexander Canario, and that's impressive by Kilian, given that he wasn't really thought of as a top prospect coming into the season. So he just had a breakout campaign with the Giants in starting in high A and then ending up in double A with the Giants, where he was fantastic. He had one of the best FIPs of any pitcher in the minor leagues. It may have been the best at 2.37. He was just a command artist. Walk rate with the Giants in Double-A in 11 starts was just 3.3%. And he also was kind of a ground ball machine as well. So, he's shot up prospect rankings. And Melissa Lockard, whose top 30 Giants prospects list we talked about just the other day, she was asked where would Kilian and Canario have ranked in her top 30. And she said both would have been in the top 15. Kilian would have slotted in around Ryan Murphy / Nick Swinney, and Canario would have fallen somewhere between Jairo Pomares and Iverson Arteaga. And so Ryan Murphy and Nick Swinney were about 12, 13 in the list, 12 and 13. Swinney was 12, Murphy 13. So not at the very top of the list, but a solid prospect. And then Canario would be further down on the list. Actually, where does she have those guys? Oh, a little higher, actually. She has Arteaga at number 10, and off the top, on first glance, I'm not finding where. Oh, Ryan Murphy, number 13. Oh, she said Pomares. I'm getting all backwards and confused. It's hard to do this on the fly. But regardless, the point is that they're not elite prospects, but they're solid prospects in the Giants system. And so, there's a chance that the Giants could live to regret it. But I would say that neither guy, like Kilian, is not seemingly a prospect who has front of the rotation potential. I think it's more of a back end starter, maybe a number 4 type starter, and a solid innings eater, a guy who can throw strikes, keep the ball on the ground. Could be a useful player. Canario has much more variance, I would say. He's kind of got raw, explosive type tools, but a lot of swing and miss and some on-base questions as well. So we shall see. Only time will tell. But at the end of the day, even though the Giants didn't win the World Series, I think the fact that they can go out there and say they won the division, they won the most games in franchise history, there's a lot of value in that. And the fans, the Giants became relevant again, and a lot of it had to do with winning the division, taking it away from the Dodgers, who had won it, 8 years in a row. So we'll see. And there's still a chance Bryant ends up back with the Giants, in which case I would say that probably happened because of the trade, unless they are the team that just pays the most for him. I think he likes being with the Giants. He feels comfortable here. And so it remains to be seen in a number of different ways if the Giants will live to regret it. But of course, in this type of trade, it is always a possibility. So coming up next, we're going to talk about Seiya Suzuki. If I think the Giants are in on this Japanese player who has been posted, but of course the posting period has been frozen due to the lockout. And we're going to talk about if teams are talking about trades during the lockout, even though they're not supposed to. So that and so much more is coming up next. But first, it's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit, and let's be honest, whose isn't, or eating healthier, make sure you include BuiltBar in your plan. BuiltBar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. BuiltBar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good, you'll want to eat it. And unlike other protein bars, it's not chalky, waxy, or tastes like a chemical spill. You want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. By week 3, everybody, you might be thinking, this is just not worth it. Where is the chocolate? Well, Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, but they come in with a healthy profile, just about 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar in a typical Built Bar to go along with 17 grams of protein. It's truly amazing what Built Bar is able to accomplish here. So go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more questions. I hope to get to more. I always take up more time than I intend to. That is just my personal flaw, and I'm working on it. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. even though we are now just 3 days a week for a couple of months here while the offseason is kind of quiet. And at some point, we will pick up and get back to episodes 5 days a week. That is the norm for Locked On shows. The next question comes from Ray, who asks, are the Giants in on Seiya Suzuki? Seems like a much-needed right-handed bat and probably much cheaper and better defense than Bryant and Castellanos. I think you nailed it. He's probably going to cost less, I think, because there's more uncertainty. You more or less know what you're going to get with Bryant and Castellanos. But with Seiya Suzuki, he's never played an inning at the major league level, and so there's always a chance for him to just be a total bust. But I think these days, teams have pretty good projection systems probably where they can take performance in Japan and with a relatively high degree of confidence perhaps project what they're going to be able to do here in the major leagues. And so I don't see any reason why they would not be in on Seiya Suzuki. And in fact, we have some reporting from Andy Baggerly, who says basically he point blank asked Farhan Zaidi about 2 months ago or so if the Giants were interested in him. And Zaidi's answer is something we've kind of repeated over and over, because he said basically, certainly we're going to be in that market for a right-handed outfielder with good at-bat quality and power. He said that really fits our team. And so that got us thinking, who are the right-handed outfielders with power and good at-bat quality, which to me means like they don't chase out of the zone a lot. And I think Suzuki is as good of a candidate as anyone. And part of what's great about Seiya Suzuki is there's a 30-day posting window. And so about a week into that window passed already, and the lockout paused it. So once the lockout ends, whenever that may be, there's a set period of time during which this guy can sign. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to come to the major leagues in 2022. And so we know when that period would end. It would be about 3 weeks after the lockout ends. So, yeah, I think that there's no doubt that the Giants are just about as good of a fit as there is out there. And in fact, I'm not going to call them the favorites, but I would put them up there among the favorites just because of what Zaidi said, because of the fact that he would fit their team really well. And there's just really a strong potential for it to be a really good signing because there's upside beyond what the contract is likely to be. And I think that the Giants are really intrigued when there's strong surplus potential. So yeah, I do believe they're in on Seiya Suzuki. Next question comes from John, who asked, do you think teams will begin secretly working out trades that they can announce after the lockout ends? What I have heard and seen is that there's probably some of that going on, but possibly not to the extent that you might imagine, because teams are really kind of strictly being told they are not to discuss anything regarding major league players with one another at this point in time. Of course, it's just unreasonable to think that that's not happening at all, because what is MLB like tapping the phones of these general managers and presidents of baseball operations? Of course not. And so, yeah, I would expect that there's some of that going on, but I don't think the lockout's going to end and then boom, you're just going to have a bunch of trades announced. I think it's certainly possible that you could get super detailed and basically work out a trade during the lockout, but just for optics, you wouldn't want to announce it right when it ended. So they would probably want to wait a while anyway. And once they feel like they can communicate with all other teams, maybe they still want to shop around for a better offer. I don't know. So I kind of doubt it, even though it's a possibility. But I hope so. I just want some action. I want to see trades. I want the Giants to make trades. They still need some starting pitching, and obviously they need potentially to make a big move on the position player side after losing Buster Posey and Kris Bryant to free agency and retirement. So we'll see. I just hope the lockout ends sooner rather than later, and we can get back to the activity of the offseason. Next question comes from Giants fan 831, who asks, how would you rate Michael Conforto as a potential outfielder pickup? Well, I would rate him pretty well. I think that I mentioned just a second ago how the Giants like to sign players to deals that have the potential to become kind of good contracts where the players are outperforming what they're being paid, basically, because then those players have really great trade value, and if you need to, you can trade them and acquire even more players in return. So you don't really want an underwater contract because then you're stuck. You can't trade that contract, and the production doesn't warrant what you're paying them. So you get underwater with that, and we've seen the consequences of that. That's part of what led the Giants to their demise. They had a $200+ million payroll, and they were one of the worst teams in the league. And so that's what you're trying to avoid here. But anyway, Michael Conforto is coming off a down year, and when I look at the numbers, it was a down year offensively, but the expected numbers based on the quality of contact were actually pretty darn good. And so I would bank on him returning to form in 2022 and beyond. So I like the fit quite a bit. The one thing is that he's not right-handed, and we just, did hear, I mentioned that quote from Zaidi talking about how a right-handed player fit their team really well. So in the outfield, they've got a lot of lefties already. They've got Lamont Wade Jr., they've got Mike Yastrzemski, Steven Duggar is out of options. And so I'm not exactly sure where Conforto would play. I guess you could have Conforto, say, in right field. You could put Yastrzemski in center, and you could have Wade in left against right-handed pitchers. And then against lefties, you could have Ruff out there. You could have Slater out there, and then you could continue to have maybe Conforto out there. I haven't looked at his platoon splits. I believe he has actually pretty strong platoon splits, meaning much better against righties than lefties, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't looked in a while, but he's an intriguing player. When we talk about power and at-bat quality, he has that. He's a pretty disciplined hitter, and he certainly has power, and career .356 on-base percentage, which is strong, career 12.1% walk rate, which is strong. So I like the player. I'm just not 100. I think if he was right-handed, he would be kind of a dream fit, but he is left-handed, so I'm not entirely sure it's the strongest fit. But coming off a down year, it's possible he could be signed for somewhat of a bargain, and I think that will continue to intrigue the Giants. So coming up next, more questions. We're going to talk about the over-under, what I would put the over-under on for the Giants' win total in 2022, and what they need to do to maintain their status as an elite team. So all of that next, but first, BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new updated website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit using our promo code LOCKEDON, one word, to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. All right, here we go. We're going to get to the last round of questions for today. We still have a lot more that I intend to get to at some point. Thank you again to everyone who submitted questions on Twitter. Next question comes from Pat, who asks, over-under on wins next year, 81? So this is tough, and I assume you mean at this point in the offseason, right? And not like what I would expect it will be once the season starts, because I don't think the Giants are done with their offseason. They've tended to be very busy as the offseason has gone deeper and deeper in recent years. There are players who are anxious to sign with spring training right around the corner, and there's suddenly a lot of players out there, and maybe most teams are done with their offseason acquisitions, and the Giants pounce on that opportunity and sign valuable players. Like Wilmer Flores was signed late. Jose Alvarez was signed late. These guys aren't like earth-shattering difference makers, but they've been useful contributors to the Giants, and they definitely signed late in the process. And those are just a couple of examples off the top of my head. And they've also made a lot of trades. Yastrzemski was acquired, I think, during spring training in 2019, and then Lamont Wade Jr. was acquired late in the offseason as well, prior to last season. So there's a lot more that could happen between whenever the lockout ends and the start of the season. So putting an estimate on a win total right now, I think, is probably the only fair way to do it. But it also doesn't really mean much because you're not going to actually play games with this roster. But I'll try to just say, as it is right now, if the over-under was 81 on the Giants, I would definitely say take the over. They're coming off a 107-win season. I understand if the over-under was 106.5, I would 100% say take the under. So I'm not saying expect 107 wins. That's basically a best-case scenario for any team, let alone the Giants, who entered the year with low expectations. 107 wins just doesn't happen very often, so I would fully expect the Giants to be under that in 2022. But, I mean, even 100, I would say take the under for sure. But if it's 81, I'm saying take the over. I have way more confidence than that in this front office and coaching staff to get the most out of these players to be an above 500 team. So right now, say like 85.5 or 84.5, and that's being quite conservative, and that's right now. But once they make their final acquisitions and opening day is here, I'd probably expect it to be closer to 87.5 or so, and that's again being pretty conservative. If they have a season and they win game mid 80s, if they win like 85 games, that should be considered a disappointment coming off a 107 win season. They should be aiming to be a 90 plus win team every year at this point after the season they just had. So I would consider that a major disappointment at this stage of the game. But yeah, I think that a little higher than 81, which is what you threw out there as kind of a shot in the dark right now, and then when it's all said and done, expect it to be closer to 90. And that's for me. I think that the odds makers will continue to sleep on the Giants. They're generally a good bet to take the over on at this point. And people just always underrate the Giants. So we'll see what those numbers end up being, and I'll come on and I'll give my advice about if anyone is interested in making a bet. I'll say what I think based on what the over-under actually is. So the next question is from, I have no idea how to pronounce this, ARJNPPM. No idea how to pronounce that. Who asks, what do they have to do to maintain their status as an elite team next season? And so this question is going to take a lot of time. And so we're going to have to get to it either on Thursday or on Friday. I think the next episode for the week is going to be on Friday. So we will get to this question first on Friday. And, obviously they lost Kris Bryant right now. He's still a free agent. Buster Posey retired. Kevin Gausman signed with another team, the Blue Jays. And the Giants brought back a lot of players. I mean, Alex Wood, Anthony DeSclafani. They add Alex Cobb. But undoubtedly, especially with Posey, I mean, Posey was arguably the best catcher in the game. And now they go to a completely unproven player. Yes, one of the best prospects in the game in Joey Bart, but still an unproven player, someone who completely flopped in 2020. And so, yeah, you're 107 wins, like I just said a minute ago, was already something you shouldn't expect, even if you ran back the same roster and even if you had Kris Bryant all season. And then you lose Posey, Bryant, Gausman. There's no doubt that you've lost some wins there. So yeah, we're going to talk about that on Friday. Anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again on Friday, getting to more mailbag questions. Thanks again for listening. Stay Locked On Giants.